Hello everyone, and welcome to the lesson on tool selection for managing e-learning projects. Our learning objective today is to be able to compare digital tools available for project management, including scheduling, communication, and time management. Today we are going to cover questions to ask yourself when deciding on which tools to use, types of tools and examples of each type, and pitfalls to avoid when selecting tools for your project. Project teams often use digital tools to store much of the information in the project plan, to communicate with each other, and to share files. There are an abundance of project management platforms on the market, and the functionality of these tools vary greatly. Often, platforms will be pre-selected by the organization you are working for, and the cost for using these tools will be built into the operating costs of that organization. At other times, you may require tools for specific tasks, and you may or may not have a budget to pay for extra tools. A good process when selecting tools is to analyze what you need to do from a high level and then research tools that meet those needs. Ask yourself questions like, what is the geographic location of my team? What external stakeholders does my team need to communicate with? What types of files need to be shared? What existing platforms are available from the organization? Do we need to track our time spent on projects? How are we scheduling the project? Who needs access to the schedule and key milestone dates? Do we need to track and assign issues? Consider bringing in the team to help make tool decisions. After all, you want them to feel some ownership over the tool selection so that they use them. If your team is young, then they can be involved in initial tool selection, and more established teams can review whether the tools you are currently using are the most effective and research new tools to maximize your efficiency. As we established, though, always look at your objectives first. To look at tools first would only lead to selecting a tool that defines the way you work, rather than selecting a tool that facilitates what you want to achieve. Tools can also be selected on an as-needed basis. Often these types of tools will be free, but they can be extremely valuable when you need a short-term solution. Consider a situation where you need to react to a change in the scope, and your sponsor agrees that you can employ extra temporary staff to achieve the new deliverables. In order to allocate very specific work to these new staff members, you decide to look for an online tasking tool for this very specific purpose, rather than including them in the overall team communications. There are a number of applications that provide a suite of applications designed to keep all of your project communications in one place. These can include messaging, scheduling, milestone and calendar information, and simple file storage. They are designed to be the hubs for the project. These platforms are often in direct competition with each other, but they do have slightly differing foci that help them find their own niche. Some have a focus on communications, whereas others have a focus on tasks and scheduling. These platforms are more often used with mature teams with many projects on the go. They have the advantage of keeping all of your project information and communication in one place. There are times when an all-in-one platform just isn't suitable for your project team. These platforms require buy-in from all team members in order for them to be effective. If it is just the project manager using them, then there are probably cheaper methods to achieve the functionality provided by the platform. 3 popular examples of all-in-one platforms are Basecamp, Teamwork.com, and Asana. When an all-in-one isn't the answer for your needs, it is worth looking at what specialist tools fulfill those needs. It is helpful in these cases to break down your needs into groups so that you research and identify the tools that fit your requirements the best. As discussed earlier, the most popular form of scheduling is the Gantt chart, and there are a number of applications that perform this task for you. These tools allow you to enter and modify the outline of your tasks in the left-hand panel, and the program will generate the graphic visualization in the right-hand panel. MS Project gained a lot of traction due to its similarity to the Microsoft Office suite of products, so users of Microsoft Excel, Word, and PowerPoint could transition between applications fairly seamlessly. While it is still a popular tool, it is no longer the biggest player in a competitive market. Issue tracking tools are fairly advanced, and you may not see them in use too much within e-learning scenarios, but it is worth covering them quickly. Issue tracking tools were devised primarily for agile teams and software projects, where there are a lot of issues that need to be resolved by specific people. Their power is in being able to identify the issue, find a specific person to solve the issue, allocate the issue to this person, and resolve it in a timely manner. What is key to their success is the allocation of an issue to a specific individual. It is all very well to identify and acknowledge issues, but without allocating someone to resolve them, they become a risk to the project. Jira is a widely used per-user subscription product aimed specifically at software development teams, but it is used in other industries, including e-learning. Tasking applications are more common within e-learning scenarios and are particularly related to your work breakdown structure. They are valuable when you have multiple staff working on smaller deliverables across multiple projects. For example, imagine you are developing a number of courses, each with multiple lessons that contain short instructional videos, and you have hired a number of video editors to complete these tasks. These tasks can be identified and prioritized on a task board, and individual editors can assign themselves appropriate work and move them to completion. Trello is a free task board. It's pretty one-dimensional, but if you want a free way to allocate tasks to project team members, then this is a good option. There are two major forms of messaging in work environments, formal and informal. Email is the most common mode of formal communication and is often used when communicating outside of your immediate team and when communicating formal messages. Instant messaging is a more informal mode of communication commonly used amongst team members. Email has in many ways become a victim of its own success, and many people now suffer from bloated inboxes with many messages buried to the point of no return. In response to this, there has been a recent rise in instant messaging platforms that enables teams to communicate in channels that focus communications within specific topic areas. This type of communication is reserved for more informal messaging. Two common examples are Slack, which is an instant messaging service designed to cut down on email traffic and bloated inboxes, and Mattermost. Mattermost is a Slack alternative that can be hosted on an organization's server, meaning that your communications are secure and private. Another key type of tool used in e-learning scenarios is cloud storage and file exchange. In addition to the documentation discussed in earlier weeks, e-learning produces learning objects that need to be shared across the project team. These learning objects can include video and animation files, audio files, text files, and graphic files, and so a robust cloud storage platform is often required to facilitate this. Popular examples include Dropbox and Google Cloud. Both of these platforms offer cloud storage on a data subscription basis. There are many platforms like this on the market, and all offer their own frustrations. One particular detail to be mindful of is whose limits are being taken up when files are uploaded. Some platforms include the data in both the uploader's and the recipient's data limit, which can cause frustrations, whereas others only count the data to the uploader's data limits. As we noted last week in regards to documentation, there is an inclination to sometimes get too wrapped up in or over-dependent on the documentation and tools used in a project. Always be mindful that your tools are there to serve the purpose of facilitating the development of your deliverables. They are not the project itself. In addition, the cost of certain project management tools can be prohibitive, and sometimes there is resistance by those in charge of the budget to spend money on tools when cheap or free alternatives may be available. Many project management tools operate on a per user or per project basis. So, as your team grows or the number of projects your team works on grows, a ceiling is reached. When the ceiling is reached, you have to go to the next subscription level within the tool, but you might not have the budget to do that. So be careful when planning out your tools and make sure that what you have is scalable without necessarily incurring heavy extra costs. Finally, when we talk about traps, remember these 3 common pitfalls. Number 1, don't just use the tools that you like the most. If you do this, you may be limiting the options available to move the project forward. For example, your client's inbox may be stuffed to bursting, so don't rely on email if you are not getting a response. Pick up the phone if you really need an answer to a question. They may really appreciate the call. Number 2, don't utilize tools in an overly complex fashion. You may create a task list that delves down into the tiniest detail, but this may seem like micromanaging to those working on the tasks and may cause pushback from your team members. And number 3, don't mechanically apply every tool to each of your projects. Every one of your projects may be different and may require different toolkits. For example, if your subject matter expert is highly qualified but a little technically limited, don't crowbar them into a complex online communications hub. This concludes our lesson on tool selection. Next, we are going to explore how to run an effective meeting. See you there.